There is one detail in the first book that everyone notices, but few really stop to think about. When Ned Stark brings a she-wolf and 6 pups to Winterfell, the narrative pauses. We learn that direwolves have never before been found south of the woods, that these creatures belong to a completely different world, strangers on this earth. But here's the strange thing, the Starks have kept them for thousands of years, as their own, as part of themselves, as if there is something in the Stark blood that allows them to do so, something they themselves have long forgotten. Now ask yourself the question that fans have been avoiding for the past 25 years. What if the Starks know that the others are coming, not because they observe the stars and track the weather? What if they know because they feel it, because they sense their own kind? Before we examine the evidence, we need to establish what is accepted as fact, the facts that nobody disputes. Otherwise, we'll be talking at cross purposes. Firstly, the others appeared around 8,000 years ago during the Long Night. It was then that the Dawn Battle took place, the wall was erected, and the world survived. The chronicles do not record who defeated the others, exactly how, with whose help, or on what terms. The mist of myth. Legends pass down over millennia, losing details and becoming embellished with fiction. It is important to understand this. All we know about that period consists of layers of stories piled upon other stories. The truth lies so deep that even the maesters in the Citadel are unsure which parts of the chronicles should be considered factual. Secondly, according to legend, the wall was built by Brandon the Builder, founder of House Stark, the very same man who later became the first king in winter and ruled the North for 8,000 years. He learned the language of the children of the forest so that he might negotiate their participation in the construction. He worked with giants. He built Winterfell, where hot springs burst through the permafrost, where warmth persists even in the harshest of winters. Thirdly, all Starks, including the youngest and most untrained, can warg. This is not merely an ability. In a world where skin changers exist but are rare, the Starks display this trait across the board, and yet have never been taught it. Jon never learned. Arya never learned. Brandon the Builder, according to legend, never learned either. He simply knew how. Fourth, according to legend, the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch was a Stark. He fell in love with a pale woman beyond the wall, brought her to the Night Fort, and proclaimed himself king and her his queen. He was overthrown by his own kin, Brandon the Crushers of the Candles, in alliance with Joramun. His name was erased from history. Fifth, in an interview, Martin described the others as beautiful, ice-like beings, a different form of life. Not the dead, not inherently evil, a different species. He also said that in The Winds of Winter, readers will learn more about the others, including their connection to other forces in the world. These are the established facts. Now let's see what's wrong with them. Things that are right there on the surface, but look different when you start to look more closely. Because the first clue is already here, and it's a significant one. Varging. Let's start with this because it's the most obvious yet the most underrated. In the world of Westeros, skin changers do exist. It is not uncommon beyond the wall. The free folk have kept the tradition alive and many remember it. But south of the wall, this ability has all but died out. The Andalos persecuted those who could enter the minds of beasts. Nevertheless, the Starks are all wargs, every single one of them. Children who have never been trained, who have never even heard the word skin changer, simply begin to see dreams through the eyes of wolves. It happens of its own accord. Where does this strength come from? Official answer: the first men. The Starks are pure-blooded descendants of the first men who did not intermarry with the Andalos and who pursued magic. Their bloodline remains unadulterated. That is why the ability has been preserved. But here's the thing that doesn't add up. Up north, there are hundreds of houses with the same impure Andal admixture as the Starks, or even purer, the Umbers, the Karstarks, the Rideways, the Mormonts for that matter. None of them warg with such ease. None of them demonstrated automatically, without training, in childhood. The Rideys come close to this, which is interesting in itself. Grisha Ridey is a green seer, which links him to the Starks. This cannot be explained simply by the purity of the original blood. There is one more detail. Varamir Sixskins, the strongest skin changer among the free folk to appear in the books, dies and leaves his consciousness within a wolf. In the same way, Bran fears he might be trapped in the skin of the ghost wolf forever. It is not merely the ability to enter an animal. It is something more, a transfer of consciousness, a merging with non-human nature. The world of the others is structured in a similar way. Their army of the dead is controlled through consciousness. Their power lies in the subjugation of the living and the dead to a single will. This is the first clue. The Starks' practice of warging is not merely a surviving tradition of the first men. It is something else, something specific to their bloodline. There is another point that is rarely mentioned in this context. After Bran loses the ability to walk and begins to develop the gift of the Green Seer, he senses something unusual in the crypts of Winterfell. The ghosts of the crypts. This is neither a metaphor nor a child's nightmare. It is literally something that Bran senses. His direwolf, Summer's ghost, senses it too. He behaves uneasily precisely where the dead Starks lie. Why are the Starks buried in the crypts, and specifically with iron swords? The official answer? Tradition. The swords are needed to keep their spirits in place. But here's the strange thing. This isn't standard practice among the first men. It's something specific to this house. Something that demands the dead Starks literally remain in the ground beneath Winterfell, as if their presence matters even after death, as if the connection between their spirits and this place has some significance beyond the sentimental. And again, who else in the canon manipulates the dead in this way? Who keeps the dead in a specific state, in a specific place, for a specific purpose? The others. Their army is built precisely on the principle of controlled dead. This, of course, does not imply a direct connection. It could simply mean that the same type of magic is present in both cases. But the presence of this magic in the foundations of the house, literally in its cellars, is a detail worth bearing in mind. Bear that in mind. We'll need to come back to it when we get to the Night King. But first, there's something else. Something to do with the wall and exactly how it works. Because that's where a second clue is hidden, one that many people overlook. The wall isn't just made of ice, that much is known. Sam Tarly has read about it in the annals, and Melisandre can sense it. Spells are woven into the wall's foundations. The text doesn't specify exactly which ones, but here's the important part. They were created with the help of the children of the forest, and it was Brandon the Builder who built it all. Brandon, who mastered the true tongue of the children of the forest. Brandon, who worked alongside the giants. Brandon, who, after the long night ended, did not destroy the others once and for all, but built the wall. Wait a moment, this is the crucial point. If the others were defeated in the Dawn battle, why build the wall? Why shut oneself off from an enemy that has already been defeated? Either the others were not completely defeated, or no attempt was ever made to destroy them entirely. There are two explanations. Firstly, we only managed to drive them back, not destroy them. They retreated behind the wall. The wall is keeping them there. That's all. It's a logical interpretation, and most fans stop there. Secondly, an agreement was reached between the victors of the Battle of the Dawn and the others, a pact of sorts. The wall is not a prison, it is a border. Just as the pact between the children of the forest and the first men divided Westeros into two parts 1,000 years ago, so the wall divided the world after the long night. and someone among the people had to seal this pact, or ensure it was upheld. Here we have a third piece of evidence. For millennia, the Starks have felt a duty to hold the wall. It wasn't simply a matter of helping the Night's Watch. All the lords of the North did this from time to time. No, it was the Starks who believed that a Stark must always remain at Winterfell. This is not a tradition, it is not superstition. It is a conviction that runs in the blood. It is passed down from generation to generation without explanation. In the third book, Ned says this before setting off for King's Landing. He feels a sense of unease that he cannot explain rationally. He realizes that someone from the Stark family must be there, but he does not know exactly why. Because that knowledge was lost millennia ago. All that remains is an instinctive attachment to the place and the role of guardians. But guardians of what? Against whom? And why the Starks and not someone else? The answer may lie in the legend of the 13th, because in that story, nothing is left to chance. The 13th Lord Commander. This is where the real investigation begins. According to legend, the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch was, as old Nan claimed, a Stark of Winterfell. Perhaps his name was Brandon. He stood on the wall and saw a pale woman with eyes like blue stars. Her skin was cold as ice. He followed her. He brought her to the Night Fort. He declared himself king and her his queen. They ruled together for 13 years. Then he was overthrown. His name was erased from history. The reader's first reaction: a madman, a traitor, a man who has lost his mind and gone to bed with the enemy. But wait a minute. Old Nan herself is the key here. She is the only one among all the inhabitants of Winterfell who tells this story to the Stark children. She tells it to Brandon because old Nan, the old guard, had lived in the castle for so long that not even the maester could remember when she first arrived. She was the castle's memory. She was one of those who kept alive the stories that others had already forgotten. And it was she who insisted that the Night King was a Stark, whereas other versions of the legend named different houses: Bolton, Amber, Flint. She knew something that others no longer knew. Why did she use this story to frighten the Stark children in particular? Not just to frighten them, but to do so with a particular emphasis on their family heritage? It's a bit like the way warnings are sometimes passed down through families. Be careful with that trait. It's already caused trouble once. Because there's something else to it. The official explanation is that he was called the Night King because he made sacrifices to the others. It's standard wording. Sam mentions it when he tells Jon. But what does that actually mean? Do you remember Craster? Craster lives beyond the wall. He offers his sons up to the gods of winter. This is called a sacrifice. But we see what happens to these boys. They are turned into others. They don't die, they change. Now go back to the 13th. His name has been erased from history. That in itself speaks volumes. In Westeros, those who must not be spoken of are erased because the truth is too dangerous or too inconvenient. King Mercure Roosman Targaryen was erased for his madness. The Night King was erased. The difference is that people still whisper about the mad Targaryens, but the Night King's name has vanished so completely that only the broad outlines of the legend remain. Here's what everyone who's listened to old Nan knows. His own brother struck his name from the list. Brandon the Slayer of Canyons, Brandon Stark. This means that the 13th was, if not the brother of the Winter King of that time, then a very close relative. This means that it was the Starks who knew best what had happened, and it was the Starks who decided to keep it hidden. Why? Not because he was mad. Madmen aren't hidden away so carefully, but because the truth about him would have destroyed something important, something the Starks didn't want anyone to know. And now for the most interesting part. What if the 13th didn't betray his people? What if he did exactly what the blood he inherited from Brandon the Builder told him to do? What if he didn't collude with the enemy, but instead returned to his roots? Because if there is a touch of the others in the Stark bloodline, then the encounter with the Ice Woman beyond the wall was no madness. It was a call of nature.
Brandon the Builder. He is the key figure we must keep coming back to time and again. He founded House Stark. He mastered the true tongue of the children of the forest. He built the wall with the help of giants, the children, and arcane magical rituals. He founded the Night's Watch. He granted the lands south of the wall to the Watch, an act known as Brandon's Gift. He is also said to be responsible for Hightower in Old Town and Storm's End. Maesters believe this to be a composite figure. Several individuals from across several centuries have been merged into a single legendary hero. But here's what's important in the context of our theory. If Brandon the Builder didn't destroy the others, but instead made a pact with them, then that pact required a mediator. Someone who understood both sides, someone trusted by both parties. What might have given rise to such trust? Consider the parallel with the Targaryens. The Targaryens ride dragons. It is not merely a skill, it is in their blood. Valyrian blood, which carries within it something of fire and of the dragon's essence. It is no coincidence that those of Valyrian descent can sometimes tame a dragon. It is no coincidence that Daenerys feels heat and fire differently from ordinary people. If the same logic applies to the Starks, then their connection to the others is not a metaphor. It is a bloodline, something human, intertwined with something of the others. Perhaps through Brandon the Builder, perhaps through the 13th, who took an Ice Woman as his wife and may have sired offspring. As mentioned, the Starks have an unusually strong sense of warging, but there is another detail that is easy to overlook. When Bran begins to master the power of the Green Seer, the three-eyed raven tells him something important. He teaches him to fly. It is a metaphor, but there is something concrete behind it. Bran's ability is not merely to warg into animals, but to see through the flesh of trees, to see the past, to see the present anywhere in the world. This is a level unattainable for ordinary skin changers among the free folk. This is the level of the children of the forest. This is the level of the three-eyed raven. Where does a human boy get such strength from? Official response: Brandon is simply exceptionally talented, a 1 in a million talent. Alternatively, there is something in his blood that makes this possible. It is worth pausing here and taking a step back. Who was the three-eyed raven before he became the three-eyed raven? Brandon Rhames, nicknamed the Bloody Raven. He was a Targaryen bastard, a man with Valyrian blood running through his veins. And yet it was he who proved such a gifted greenseer that he sat in a tree beyond the wall for hundreds of years. It was no accident that the magic of the branches chose him. Now consider this. Targaryen blood combined with the abilities of the children of the forest and green sight. That's not a combination that can simply be explained away as a fluke of nature. In this universe, magic runs through the blood. If the Bloody Raven was able to become the last green seer through his Valyrian heritage, then Bran could become his successor through what the Starks carry in their blood. And here, at last, we come to the strongest piece of evidence, one that few people notice because it is hidden within the context of symbolism. Winter is coming. 3 words, our family motto. All the other mottos of Westeros are either threats or promises. Hear my roar, our fire and blood, our fury. Grow strong, family, duty, honor. These are declarations. They are what a house aspires to be. The Stark motto is a warning. Not for us, nor for our enemies, for all of Westeros. Question: why is it the Starks who take on this role, this duty of warning? Why couldn't another northern house bear this motto with the same meaning?
Because the Starks know when winter is coming. They sense it in a different way. At the start of the first book, when Ned Stark executes a deserter from the Night's Watch, he senses something on a level that cannot be explained rationally. He feels that the world has changed. He cannot prove it, nor can he explain it. It is an intuition ingrained in his blood. But that's not all. Look at the structure of the slogan itself. 3 words. Winter is near. Not beware of winter. Not winter is coming. Specifically, near. As if spoken by someone who can already hear it, someone who can already sense its presence.
And this is where the parallel begins, one that I haven't seen analyzed in detail anywhere before. In the 4th book, there is a scene where Jon Snow, not yet Lord Commander, talks to Mance Rayder about the Night's Watch and why the Free Folk are heading south. Rayder says they are heading south because something is coming after them, something pressing down from the north, something they feel as a pressure. Jon Snow feels it too. He feels the cold differently. When he is beyond the wall, he senses something his brothers in the Night's Watch do not. He thinks it is just the wind, just the cold, just fear. But it is not the same as what the Hound feels, who has never been beyond the wall, or Tyrion, or anyone else. Jon is half Stark, and he has a white ghost wolf, the only one in the litter with a different color. White, like the others.
Remember, in the very first sentence of the description of the others in the prologue to A Game of Thrones, Martin writes, "Tall, with flesh as pale as milk, the color white." It is an image that runs through the entire text. White as death and as ice. And the only white wolf went to Jon. The Stark bastard with a secret past who does not fit into the family's standard mold, who always stands slightly apart, who feels the North differently. That's the theory. But here's what's interesting about it. It doesn't require the Starks to be aware that they are kin to the others. It's enough that this ancient pact lives on in their blood. Just as fire lives on in the Targaryens, though not every one of them knew it. At first glance, it seems like a lovely fantasy, but as we go on, we'll find something that makes us see it all in a different light.
Counter-arguments must be stated honestly. Otherwise, it is not an investigation, but promotional material for a theory. The main objection: the Starks aren't special. Their warging ability is simply explained by the fact that they are pure-blooded First Men. Their connection to winter is simply explained by the fact that they live in the north. Their motto is simply explained by centuries of experience. Occam's razor: there is no need to postulate icy blood where simpler explanations suffice. That's a strong objection, and to be honest, it holds up well against most of the arguments put forward above. The purity of the First Men's original blood might well explain warging. The millennia spent at the Wall explain their sensitivity to winter. But here's what this counter-argument fails to explain. Firstly, why was the 13th so thoroughly erased from history that not even his name has survived? A mere traitor is remembered and spoken of. This is a telling example of what must not be said. Secondly, why is it that, of all the houses of the First Men, only the Starks bear a motto that serves as a warning? Not a threat, not a promise, but specifically a warning. It is as though they know something the others do not. Thirdly, why, according to legend, did Brandon the Builder possess more than just the ability to build? He understood the wall on a level beyond the reach of others. He knew where to draw the boundary. He knew which spells were required. Where did this knowledge come from? Fourthly, and this is the most difficult part, Martin described the others in an interview as beautiful, graceful, a different form of life. He emphasized several times that they are not the dead. They are alive. They are different. And in one interview, he added that the nature of their connection to the children of the forest would be revealed later in the books.
If the children of the forest and the others are somehow connected, then the construction of the wall, in which both groups played a part, is not merely a military operation. It is something far more complex, a certain order, cemented by magic. And Brandon the Builder was the mediator of this order.
So the counter-argument holds water, but not entirely. The theory doesn't fall apart. It falters in places, but the main structure holds up. Now let's see what the author's perspective has to say, because that's where a lot of things start to fall into place. Martin has a particular fondness for a certain kind of plot twist. In an interview, he describes it as, "Things aren't what they seem." Example, the Lannisters seem like villains, but each of them has a human side. Daenerys seems like a liberator, but turns into a conqueror. Others seem like pure evil, but Martin says they are another form of life. This is a crucial point. Martin doesn't simply use the others as a literary horror, as some sort of orc-like monstrous antagonist. He has specifically clarified in several interviews that they are alive, that they are not merely walking corpses, and that they will be featured more prominently in The Winds of Winter. If the others were simply evil, without any nuance, why would Martin bother to distinguish them by saying they are not the dead? Why emphasize their beauty and grace? These are details that only matter if, in the end, the others turn out to be something more than mere villains. The parallel with history works like this. In the real history that Martin used as the basis for the series, the enemy often turned out to be something other than what they were taken for. Wars that we tend to think of as just savages, conquerors, monsters, often turned out to be conflicts in which the truth lay with several sides at once. That is exactly how Martin wrote The Red Wedding. That is exactly how he wrote Jaime Lannister. That is exactly how he wrote The Night's Watch, not as heroic defenders, but as a failing institution teeming with criminals. And here's the important thing. The saga has a clear fire and ice structure. The Targaryens embody fire. Their blood, their dragons, their history, it's all about fire. The others bring ice, and in the middle stand the Starks. They are called the Kings of Winter, not the Kings of the North or the Kings of Ice. Winter, something that comes and goes, something transient. In A Song of Ice and Fire, if one considers the structure of the metaphor, the Starks represent the space between two extremes. They are neither fire nor ice. They are winter, something that belongs to both worlds. This is no mere coincidence. Martin is too meticulous a storyteller to allow himself to use a random image in the title of the entire series. But of course, this is simply the author's perspective, not proof. It does not turn a theory into fact. It merely suggests that such a theory fits with the way Martin constructs his narrative. There's something else, something specific, from the text, something we found right at the start and put off until later. Werewolves. Let's return to them, because it is here that the theory takes on an unexpected dimension. According to the canon, dire wolves live north of the wall. They haven't been seen south of it for millennia. Their presence near Bran Street is an anomaly that the text itself notes. It is strange. It is a violation of the natural order. But here's the interesting thing. The dire wolves don't just appear anywhere. They appear on the border between north and south, near the body of a she-wolf killed by a stag. The first family spots them just before the political landscape of Westeros is turned upside down. Ned becomes the Hand, the Starks head south, and life changes. It's as if the 6 wolf cubs appeared at precisely the moment they were needed. Who are they for? Ned's 6 children, one of whom turns out to be a greenseer. Another comes back to life after dying. Another trains in martial arts at the House of Black and White. Another becomes the Queen of the North. Dire wolves are companions, extensions of the Stark family's souls. This is made explicitly clear in the text. Grey Wind dies alongside Robb. Ghost is always by Jon's side. When Nymeria leaves, it is as though a part of Arya has been lost. Now here's the question.
Who else in the canon is capable of forging such a link between the spirit and a physical vessel? Who else's magic is based on subjugating the living and the dead through sheer will? The others. The army of the dead marches at their command, for they have taken control of something greater than the body. They control the very essence of a being. It's the same magic, a different scale, a different direction, but the principle is the same. That isn't proof, it's a similarity. But for Martin, who weaves mirrored pairs throughout the text, a similarity often speaks louder than a mere coincidence. Of course, there is a simple alternative explanation here. Warging and the magic of the others may share a single source, the children of the forest, without any blood ties between the Starks and the others. That is a valid point, but it does not invalidate everything we have discussed previously, because now it's time to put the whole picture together.
If the theory is correct, then this is what actually happened 8,000 years ago. The long night was a complete disaster. The others came from the north. The children of the forest, who were the first to create or awaken them, were unable to stop them. The Battle of Dawn took place, but not as the chronicles tell us. It was not a clear-cut victory. It was a deal. Brandon the Builder, a man whose blood, for some reason, contained something that allowed him to act as a mediator between worlds, struck a deal. The wall became more than just a fortification. It became a border. The children of the forest were given that side. The humans were given this one. The others were given the space beyond the wall, from which they do not leave whilst the agreement remains in force. The pact holds as long as Stark stands at Winterfell, as long as Brandon's blood maintains the link between the two worlds. That is precisely why there must always be a Stark at Winterfell, not out of sentimentality, out of necessity. They are, quite literally, the anchor that holds the pact together.
That is precisely why, when Theon seizes Winterfell and the Starks are scattered, the others begin to stir. A coincidence? In Martin's text, coincidences on this scale simply do not happen. That is precisely why the 13th was erased from history, because he did what his blood theoretically allowed him to do. He brought the two worlds together once more. He took the Ice Woman. He tried to restore something very ancient. This was unacceptable to human society. For the Starks, who upheld that pact, it was a violation of everything they had built. They killed him. They erased his name. They forbade any remembrance of him. But they themselves had not forgotten. They passed this knowledge down, generation after generation, as an instinct, a motto, a conviction. Stay at Winterfell. The wall must hold. Winter is coming.
There is one more detail worth adding to this picture. When Jon Snow dies and is resurrected, the first thing he sees is Ghost. His white wolf is the first to realize that he is alive. This is a scene from the TV series. The book version is unknown. But if we accept the theory of the Stark's blood connection to the realm between life and death, then Jon's resurrection is not merely the magic of Melisandre and Rhaal. It is also something that belongs to the Stark bloodline, something that allowed him to return, because he does not fully belong to the ordinary human world. This is speculation, but it is precisely the sort of speculation that Martin provokes with his writing. Not directly, but through hints, parallels, and details that are not essential to the plot, yet are clearly present. How should we assess all this as a whole? On a fair plausibility scale, this theory falls into the category of more likely than not, but with serious flaws. What works well? The Starks' extraordinary ability to warg. A motto that serves as a warning rather than a threat. The belief that a Stark is present at Winterfell. The story of the 13th and his name being struck from the list. The parallel between the fire of Targaryen blood and the possible ice of Stark blood. The activation of the others precisely at the moment the Starks disappear from Winterfell. Martin's description of the others as living, beautiful, other forms of life.
The presence of the dead Starks in the crypts with iron swords literally chained to the ground beneath the castle. What doesn't add up? There is no direct textual evidence of a bloodline connection between the Starks and the others. The warging can be explained through the first men and the children of the forest without invoking the others. The others' emergence may simply have been scheduled for this time rather than being linked to the Starks' departure. The motto, "Winter is coming," may simply have arisen from practical considerations. Life in the North demands constant readiness.
What makes this theory worth exploring is that Martin never writes one-dimensional villains. In the books, they are far more enigmatic than in the series. They have no clear motive, no straightforward plan, and no explanation of what they want. If their story continues in The Winds of Winter, the most interesting thing that could happen there is precisely a re-examination of their nature. And the Starks, as mediators rather than mere adversaries, would be a typically Martin-esque solution. What might confirm or refute this? The Winds of Winter might reveal more about the nature of the spells within the wall, the history of the First Pact, and what Brandon the Builder knew. If Bran, whilst delving into the past through greenseeing, had seen not just the construction of the wall, but the negotiations that preceded it. If there were a reason why the others never attacked the Starks directly, not because they couldn't, but because they didn't want to. That, to me, is the strongest argument of all. At no point throughout the entire story did the others attempt to kill any of the Starks when they had the chance. Bran reached the wall and walked through it. The ghost of the Night's Watch, through which Bran passed, is the place where the 13th once ruled. A coincidence? Perhaps, but Martin doesn't believe in coincidences. Personal view. The theory is plausible. It has not been proven. Its appeal lies precisely in the fact that it explains several things at once, rather than just one. But what I think is really important isn't the theory itself, it's what it tells us about Martin's universe as a whole. The Targaryens bring fire, others bring ice. The Starks have stood between them for 8,000 years. Their motto is not merely a warning, it is a reminder that they know something others have long forgotten. That something from the very beginning of the world is preserved in their blood. Neither dark nor light, winter. And perhaps that is precisely why Winter is not afraid of the Starks. Winter recognizes them. The title of the series is A Song of Ice and Fire, not a war of ice and fire, not a clash. It is specifically a song, as if ice and fire are not necessarily enemies, as if there is a third thing between them that keeps them in balance, that allows them to exist in the same world without destroying one another. That thing is called the Starks. That thing is called Winter. In the first episode of the first book, at the place where the living and the dead meet, the Starks find direwolves, 6 pups for 6 children. The mother is dead. A single male direwolf watches from the north, the only white one. This is Jon Snow, and he is the only one whose origins we spend almost the entire series discussing. But what if Jon Snow's origins are only part of the story? What if the origins of the entire House of Stark are the second part, which Martin hasn't written yet? Winter is coming. The Starks knew it. They always knew. They didn't know because they watched the wind and the clouds. They knew because it was in them. Because they are winter. It's guardians, it's warning, or, if the theory is correct, it's blood. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Is this convincing or just the usual spin to make a good idea look even better? And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next analysis. There is a house in Westeros that almost nobody talks about. It doesn't mint coins, it doesn't build castles of gold, and it doesn't burn its enemies with dragon fire. Yet, this is the very house that guards a secret upon which everything depended. who sits on the Iron Throne, whether Jon Snow is alive, and whether the War of the Five Kings even happened the way it did. A small, swamp-dwelling house with an estate that's impossible to find, led by a man whom George R.R. Martin has deliberately kept from being a POV character, because he knows too much. Today, we're going to break down exactly what he knows, and why it's more important than any army on the battlefield.
Before we talk about the secrets of the Reeds, we need to understand who they actually are. Most viewers of the show know very little about this house. A boy with green eyes dying on the road to the Three-Eyed Raven, and his sister with a net and frog spear dragging Bran through the snow. But behind these two children lies a history that runs much deeper than most northern houses would care to admit. The Reeds rule the Neck. For those who don't remember their geography, the Neck is a marshy isthmus connecting the north to the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. It's literally a bottleneck. The only land route passes through a causeway defended by Moat Cailin. Everything else is bogs, quagmires, poisonous plants, lizard lions, and people who know how to fight in a way that no heavy cavalry would ever dare to challenge. Whoever controls the Neck controls access to the north, and this bottleneck has been ruled by one house for thousands of years. Small, poor, without pomp or ceremony, but absolutely indispensable. The Bog Devils, that's what they call the Reeds people, the Crannog men, are a distinct folk. Short in stature, quiet, and insular. They don't leave outsiders alive in their swamps without permission, they don't invite guests, and they almost never leave the Neck. Their weapons are nets, bronze knives, frog spears, leather shields, and poison-tipped arrows. No knights, no maesters, no commanders in plate armor, just people who know every square meter of their swamps better than their own faces. They're called frog eaters. They're mocked. They aren't taken seriously. And that, incidentally, is their greatest advantage. Greywater Watch. That's the name of their castle. That alone tells you you're dealing with something unusual. Greywater isn't a fortress on a cliff. It's a structure built on a crannog, a man-made floating island in the swamps. It doesn't stay in one place. No raven can ever find it in the same spot twice. No army has ever captured it in all of history. The Ironborn couldn't find it. The Freys, who spent centuries trying to expand their lands north, couldn't either. A castle that moves, leaves no tracks, and doesn't accept uninvited guests. If you think about it, it's the perfect image for Guardians of Secrets, a place that is, by definition, impossible to find without an invitation, a floating archive at the edge of the north. But what exactly are they guarding? That only becomes clear when you start digging into the history of the house properly, because the surface hides something that changes your entire perspective on the events of the main saga irreversibly. And this story doesn't start with Howland, or the Tower of Joy, or the War of the Five Kings. It starts with the swamps and the children of the forest, in an era that almost no one in Westeros remembers anymore. To understand the DNA of House Reed, you have to go way back, further than most northern histories, before the Starks and their role as Kings of Winter, before Bran the Builder and the Wall. There existed something that has vanished from the memory of almost all Northerners, except for the Bog Devil. The world of ice and fire tells us that in the Dawn Age, when the children of the forest still inhabited Westeros and were at war with the First Men, something important happened in the region of the Neck. The children attempted one of their great acts of magic. They wanted to shatter the Neck using the Hammer of the Waters, a catastrophic spell that had worked once before. That's how the children separated the Arm of Dorne to stop the invasion of the First Men from the east. They were prepared to flood the entire isthmus just to stop the humans. According to legend, something changed. Something got in the way. The Neck wasn't flooded. And it was during this time that the Crannog men grew closer to the children than any other of the First Men. While other humans were chopping down weirwoods and waging war, the Bog Devils were drawn to the forest dwellers, to their knowledge, to their memory. This bond defined everything that followed. That is why the bog devils have different blood than the rest of the northerners. The world of ice and fire states it plainly. Among the Cranogmen, there are those who possess the gift of green dreams. Green sight is the magic of the children of the forest. Green seers were their sages, their mages, their living links to the trees. And these little people of the swamps have this ability too. Maester Yondel, the official author of the World of Ice and Fire, explains the short stature of the Cranogmen as a result of poor nutrition, claiming there's no grain in the swamps. But in the same breath, he admits that some believe the cause is interbreeding with the children of the forest. Maesters don't like to acknowledge magic where they think it doesn't belong. But the fact remains, the Cranogmen remember what has been forgotten at Winterfell. And Jojen Reed, upon arriving at Winterfell, tells Bran directly the secrets of the old gods, the truths that the first men knew, are forgotten now at Winterfell. Not lost everywhere, just at Winterfell. The Bog Devils haven't forgotten. That is the red thread of the house through the millennia, silence and memory. While the rest of the North looks forward and forgets, the Reeds guard what once was. And here arises one of the most important facts about the entire house. Howland Reed spent an entire winter on the Isle of Faces. This is a sacred place in the center of the God's Eye Lake, where thousands of years ago, the children of the forest and the first men signed the pact. The island is covered in weirwoods with carved faces, the very ones that were meant to witness the oath. The Green Men live there, a secret order of guardians that survived even the Andal invasion. Almost no one ever gets there. No one is allowed in without the island itself choosing them. Howland was one of the few people in the history of Westeros to spend time there and return. What did he learn there? What did the Green Men tell him? Martin doesn't answer this question, but the question hangs in the text like an open loop that the author clearly hasn't forgotten. So, there's the architecture of the house at the very beginning, a people who remember what everyone else has forgotten, a man who has been where no one else goes, a castle that is impossible to find, and all this long before Howland Reed ended up at the Tower of Joy. And then came the year 281 AC, and everything that had been building up until then converged at a single point. But before we move on to that year, it's worth dwelling a bit more on the Isle of Faces. This place is rarely mentioned in the saga, but every mention is loaded with meaning. The Isle of Faces lies in the center of the God's Eye, in the Riverlands, south of Harrenhal. It was there, thousands of years ago, that the pact between the first men and the children of the forest was signed, ending a long war. As a sign of the oath, a face was carved into every weirwood on the island so that the gods would witness the peace. Since then, the Green Men have lived there, an order guarding the trees. According to old legends, they wear green robes and are sometimes described as having antlers and dark green skin. Maester Yondel in The World is quite skeptical about their existence, but he himself admits the Andals, who destroyed weirwoods all across Westeros, never managed to take the Isle of Faces. Something stopped them. Howland spent an entire winter there shortly before the tourney at Harrenhal. This is a canonical fact described in the books. The young Bog Devil went to the Isle of Faces and returned. He is the only person we know of who did this in the relatively modern era. What happened there over the winter? Martin doesn't write it. But exactly after this, Howland went to the tourney, the Knight of the Laughing Tree appeared there with a shield depicting a laughing weirwood, and then a chain of events began that changed the world. Coincidence? There are no coincidences with Martin. It was after that winter on the Isle of Faces that Howland Reed went to the famous tourney at Harrenhal, the year of the false spring, as it's called. The most famous tourney in the history of Westeros, because it was here that Prince Rhaegar Targaryen placed the crown of Queen of Love and Beauty not on the head of his wife, Elia Martell, but on the head of Lyanna Stark.
This gesture triggered a chain of events that ended in Robert's rebellion, the fall of an entire dynasty, and the birth of the world we know from the books and the show.
The little bog devil arrived at the tourney, of stranger among strangers. Crannogmen weren't respected. Howland was attacked by 3 squires, older and larger than him. They took his weapons, kicked him, and mocked the frog-eater from the swamps. He was saved by young Lyanna Stark, who chased them off with a wooden tourney sword. She took him to her brothers, fed him, insisted he go to the feast because he was highborn and had as much right to sit on the bench as anyone else. That night changed everything. That was when Howland met Eddard Stark. A friendship was forged between them that lasted all of Ned's life and survived his death. And then, at that same tourney, the Knight of the Laughing Tree appeared. A mysterious knight in mismatched armor entered the lists and challenged the 3 knights whose squires had bullied the bog devil. His shield bore the laughing face of a weirwood. He defeated all 3. He demanded a ransom in the form of an oath. The knights had to punish their squires for their dishonor. And then he vanished. King Aerys personally ordered the knight to be found. Prince Rhaegar rode out to search for him. The knight was never found. His identity remains to this day one of the great mysteries of Westerosi history. In the books, this question is left open. Mira tells the story in a way that hints it could have been the bog devil. Jojen adds cautiously, or maybe not. Bran, listening, strongly suspects that the knight was indeed Howland. Arguments in favor of this version include the following. Howland had just spent the winter with the Green Men on the Isle of Faces and could have received help or power from the old gods. He was shorter than average, which matches the description of the knight. The motive for revenge was stronger than anyone else's. The shield with the weirwood pointed to a connection with the northern gods and the swamps. But there is another version which also has strong arguments. The knight was Lyanna Stark, on her own, without Howland. They say she was skilled with weapons. It was she who saved the bog devil. It was she who brought him into the Stark circle. Her voice could have sounded deeper through a helmet. There is no answer, and perhaps there won't be one explicitly in the books.
But there's something more important. Ned Stark knew this story and had heard it more than once, and yet he never told his children. Jojen and Mira are astonished that Bran hasn't heard it hundreds of times, as they have. Why did Ned stay silent? One possible reason, the story of the Knight of the Laughing Tree is far too dangerous because it's inextricably linked to what happened next. Rhaegar crowned Lyanna the Queen of Love and Beauty right there, at that very tournament, immediately after the mysterious knight appeared. That set off the chain of events that led to Robert's rebellion. If anyone started asking questions about the knight, those questions would quickly lead to the secret Ned guarded with his life. And only one other person knew that secret: Howland Reed. The Tower of Joy. This place stands apart in the history of Westeros, like a small knot that ties almost everything together. At the end of Robert's rebellion, when the Mad King was already dead and Robert Baratheon had taken the Iron Throne, Eddard Stark led a small party south to the Red Mountains of Dorne. There, at a nameless tower, stood the last 2 knights of the Kingsguard, Gerald Hightower and Arthur Dayne, known as the Sword of the Morning, the greatest knight of his age, a man who, by Ned's own admission, would have killed him if not for Howland Reed. Before we talk about what happened in that fight, it's worth noting that context is key to understanding Howland's role. Ned returns to this memory again and again in his dreams throughout the first book. He sees his fallen men, their faces worn away by the years. He calls out their names, among them Howland Reed, the little Crannogman. In his dreams, Ned tells Bran that Arthur Dayne would have killed him if not for the tiny Crannogman. That admission carries a lot of weight. Ned was a seasoned warrior who had survived a war, and yet, he says plainly, without Howland, I would have died. In the fight of 7 against 3, almost everyone died. Only 2 remained, Ned Stark and the little Crannogmen. And it was Howland who saved Ned at the end of the skirmish. When Arthur Dayne was already standing over the defeated Lord of Winterfell with his sword raised, Howland rose from behind the knight and struck him. Ned finished off his fallen opponent. Then he climbed the steps of the tower. There is one detail from the show that's worth being honest about. In the series, Bran is shown this scene through a vision, and there, Howland lands a blow and wounds Dayne. The boy is surprised. He always thought his father had defeated the Great Knight in a fair fight. In the books, there is no such direct contradiction. Book Bran knows that Howland saved his father. Ned told him so himself. This is a significant divergence, as it shapes the image of Ned differently. The book Ned didn't hide that he had help. The show Ned became a slightly different character in the eyes of the audience. We know what he found there, his dying sister, Lyanna, and her newborn child, a child whom Ned took north and claimed as his own bastard, Jon Snow. Howland Reed stood nearby. He saw Lyanna. He saw the child. He heard the dying woman's final words. Ned didn't share this secret with his wife. He didn't share it with any of his brothers. He left no records. The only living person who knows the truth about Jon's parentage is Howland Reed. After Ned's death in the first book, he became the only one in the entire world. In the show, this scene was finally depicted, albeit in a flashback. Viewers saw a young Howland at the moment of that very fight. But in the books, he still hasn't appeared in a single live scene. He exists solely in memories, in Bran's dreams through the weirwood trees, and in the stories told by his children. Physically, he is absent from the narrative space. Martin said outright in an interview, "Howland will not be a point-of-view character because he knows too much. This isn't just an authorial whim. It's a conscious structural decision. If we had a chapter from his perspective, we would immediately know everything. The entire mystery of Jon would fall apart in the first few paragraphs." This means Howland carries information that remains both important and dangerous. He doesn't appear in any book in person, though his name is mentioned many times. His children come to Bran. Robb Stark sent messengers to him. The Crannogmen under his command fought at the Causeway of the Neck, but Howland himself remains invisible. He sits in Greywater Watch, in a castle that cannot be found, and remains silent. This silence itself is the most important fact about House Reed. They keep secrets not because they enjoy being secretive. They keep them because they understand the price of a word, and even more so, the price of silence. Now, about Howland's children. Mira and Jojen Reed arrive at Winterfell at the beginning of the second book for the Harvest Feast. They are sent by their father. This is the first thing that's important to understand. They didn't come on their own initiative. Howland sent them because Jojen had dreamt of a winged wolf in chains and a three-eyed crow beyond the wall. The children are there to carry out a mission assigned to them by their father after he learned of these dreams. House Reed acts as a single entity. There are no individual initiatives here. Every step is coordinated with the one who sits in silence in a floating castle and sees further than others. And this fact alone says a lot about Howland. When his son told him about the dreams, his father didn't brush him off. He didn't say, "You're too young, these are just dreams, go to sleep." He took it seriously, because he himself knows what visions are worth in this world. A man who spent a winter on the Isle of Faces knows how to distinguish a real warning from a random image in his head. And when his son said, "I saw a winged wolf in chains," his father understood. It was time to act. Jojen, a boy who strikes everyone he meets as someone older than his years. Quiet, serious, with deep green eyes the color of moss on a forest stone. He possesses the green sight, the gift of prophetic dreams. He didn't learn this, nor was he taught by a maester with the right chain. He simply nearly died of greywater fever as a child, and in that moment, the three-eyed crow visited him. The same crow that appeared in Bran's dreams.
the very same entity that ultimately turns out to be the Blood Raven beyond the wall, the last of the Targaryen bastards who has been fused with the tree for 3 centuries.
Jojen knows the day of his death. He says it openly. Green dreams do not lie. This isn't a pose or a metaphor. He truly has seen his end and accepted it. It is precisely this knowledge that makes his behavior in the books so heavy. He carries out his mission not because he believes in victory, but because it must be done. He resembles a man walking a preordained path who sees no point in turning back. And after Bran ends up in the Blood Raven's cave and begins his training, Jojen finds himself at a dead end. His goal has been achieved. What comes next? This is where the book and the show diverge fundamentally. In the show, Jojen dies during the White attack on the cave. He is wounded, and Mira finishes him off herself to end his suffering. It's an understandable, television-style death, clear and final. In the books, he reaches the cave alive, and then he begins to fade. He wanders the dark tunnels alone. He stares into the forest distances for hours. Mira tells Bran, Jojen wants to go home. He knows what awaits him there, and he doesn't want to fight it. And then Bran is given a red paste made from weirwood, which grants him access to a new level of visions. The paste is described as something dark, resembling blood, and Jojen is gone. No one says directly what happened. This is where one of the darkest theories in the fan community arises: Jojen paste. According to this theory, the boy was sacrificed so that his blood and his abilities would pass to Bran through ritual consumption. The children of the forest needed a powerful greenseer. Jojen had completed his work. His further existence became material for magic. This is a theory, not canon. Martin has neither confirmed nor denied it, but the way those chapters are written leaves no room for comfortable explanations. What speaks in favor of the theory? The paste is described specifically as a dark red liquid reminiscent of blood. Jojen disappears at the exact moment it appears. He himself knew his end. Accepting death as a mission looks very different in this light. The children of the forest use blood magic. This is known from other sources in the same saga. What speaks against it? All of this is circumstantial evidence, not a direct indication. Martin could simply have left Jojen's fate ambiguous for the sake of tension in the text. The book, Jojen, is scarier and deeper than the show version. His story isn't about a heroic sacrifice in battle. It's about the quiet acceptance of an end you already know. It's a special kind of courage, which the Crannog men, by all appearances, understand better than others. The courage not of a sword swing, but of patient knowledge. Mira in the books is also different. She is older than the character in the show. An experienced hunter, a warrior, a person who knows how to survive in conditions where a city knight would die on the 3rd day. She wields a net and a trident because Howland taught her himself. Not a maester, not a commander, her father. In a land where women are taught needlework rather than hunting, this is a detail that says a lot about how House Reed raises its children. Mira carries the most practical part of the house's legacy, the ability to survive where others drown, literally and metaphorically. She is the one who brought Bran to his goal, not because she was the strongest possible protector, but because Crannogmen know how to move through spaces that kill everyone else, be it a swamp or the world beyond the wall. At the same time, Mira carries something else. She is the only one of Howland's children who survived and returned to the world of men. Jojen remained beyond the wall forever, one way or another. Hodor died. Mira returned. And within her lies everything she saw and endured, the death of her brother, the long journey, and the knowledge of what Bran has become. It's a heavy burden. In the show, her farewell to Bran looks like a farewell to a person who has become something non-human. Bran didn't thank her as a person. It was as if he were looking right through her. In the books, her story is still ongoing.
And what happens next may prove to be more important than it seems. Because Mira, unlike her father, has already left the swamps. She has been in the big world. She has seen the war. She has seen the White Walkers. She has seen what the Blood Raven is doing to Bran. She carries this knowledge. And if Howland ever emerges from Greywater Watch to speak, Mira already knows what to tell him about what happened to his son. And that, perhaps, is the hardest thing she will ever have to do.
Now, let's look at what exactly makes House Reed strategically vital, not just within the scope of a single war, but on the scale of the entire saga. Throughout the War of the Five Kings, we see nothing but murder, betrayal, and destruction. And at the heart of so much of what unfolds lies the lie about Jon Snow. Robert Baratheon hated the Targaryens so viscerally that any child with Targaryen blood wouldn't have lasted a day. Ned didn't hide Jon because he enjoyed the deception, but because he had no other choice. But from the moment Robert died and Jon ended up at the Wall, the situation began to shift. The secret was still necessary. It was still dangerous, especially with Cersei around, ready to destroy any potential claimant. If Howland Reed had stepped out of his moving castle and declared the truth, the entire balance of power would have shifted instantly. As the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen, Jon is simultaneously the heir to two of the greatest houses in Westeros. His claim to the throne supersedes Daenerys's by direct line. His parentage makes him a contender who cannot be easily ignored. This knowledge is the nuclear weapon that Howland keeps hidden in the swamps of the Neck. And that is precisely why, in a world where information kills, the silence of the Reeds is more valuable than any army. Look at it from another angle. Roose Bolton, the new Warden of the North after the Red Wedding, is terrified of the Crannogmen. He travels through the Neck in a carriage with a body double, fearing an ambush. A man who trusts only cold, hard calculation doesn't try to recruit them or wipe them out. He simply tries to avoid being within their reach. That speaks volumes. A house without knights or castle walls forces one of the North's smartest political players to change his routes. It's worth drawing a parallel. There are other keepers of knowledge in the saga: the Citadel with its maesters, the Faceless Men in Braavos, the Blood Raven beyond the Wall. They all hold knowledge, but each in their own way. The maesters systematize and control access. The Faceless Men treat death as a technology. The Blood Raven preserves the past through the trees. The Reeds preserve it differently, not in stone or in trees, but in the living memory of a man who was personally there when the pivotal events took place. And that makes their knowledge fundamentally different. Stone can be destroyed, trees can be felled, but as long as Howland is alive, the truth is alive. Because the Neck belongs to the Reeds, and if the Reeds decide that someone shall not pass, they will not pass. The Crannogmen remember the children of the forest. This isn't a metaphor or some romantic notion. It's a literal statement about the nature of their magic and their memory. While the North has forgotten the essence of the old gods and turned them into mere ritual, the Crannogmen have kept something alive. Jojen possessed the green sight not because he studied for it, but because he was born with it. After nearly dying as a child, he was visited by the three-eyed crow, the very same crow that appeared in Bran's dreams, the same one that turns out to be the Blood Raven beyond the Wall. This implies the following: the Blood Raven knew about Jojen long before he reached the cave, that Jojen was part of the plan, to send the children to Bran, to awaken his abilities, and to guide him in the right direction. Howland Reed, having spent a winter with the Green Men on the Isle of Faces, might have received something like instructions back then, or at least an understanding of what had to happen, that his son carried the seed of the site and, at the right moment, had to go where he was needed. This is a fan interpretation, a theory in its purest form. Martin hasn't laid these connections out explicitly in the text, but the architecture of the saga hints at such a structure persistently enough that it cannot be entirely ignored. And there is another fact that many overlook.
The oath that Mira and Jojen swear when they meet Bran is different from the standard northern vassal oath. The standard oath mentions the old gods or the gods of the seven. The Reed's oath goes like this: "We swear this on ice and fire." Ice and fire, the two words that make up the title of the entire series. A small swamp house, never one to reach for power, utters this specific oath. Martin doesn't do accidental details. This is either a deliberate nod to the nature of the whole story or a hint that the Crannogmen understand the essence of what is happening far better than any other player in this game. If you look at House Reed not as a minor vassal house without ambition, but as what it truly is, everything falls into place. A repository of memory, a bridge between the world of living gods and a world that has forgotten them, a strategic point without which the North is exposed from the South, and the only living witness to the secret that changed history. Each of these elements is important on its own. Together, they make the Reeds one of the most significant houses in the saga, despite being neither seen nor heard. In Martin's universe, there are many houses striving for power. The Lannisters, Targaryens, Baratheons, Tyrells, they all play the Game of Thrones. The Reeds do not play it. Their game is different. Not who will sit on the throne, but who will survive when the game ends and winter comes.
The red thread of House Reed runs through their entire history. Silence as a weapon. Not the silence of cowardice or indifference. Silence as a conscious choice by people who understand that what they are guarding is more important than any fleeting victory. Howland could have stepped out at any moment after Ned's death and declared the truth. That would have changed the war. But he didn't, because he knew that the timing of the announcement matters just as much as the announcement itself. And because the Crannogmen live by a different clock than the kings and lords who are always in such a rush. Their castle floats. Their ancestors remember what others have forgotten. Their children see the future. Their lord knows a secret that turns everything on its head. These aren't coincidences. This is a house built to preserve, to endure, and to know that the truth does not disappear. It only waits for its time. There is a theory that has existed among book fans for a long time. Howland will yet appear in the unfinished novels, that he will be the one to finally tell Jon or someone else the whole truth about the Tower of Joy, that the floating castle of Greywater Watch will eventually be found because it will allow itself to be found. It's a theory, but it's based on a solid understanding of how Martin builds his plots. Nothing is random, every detail works, and a character the author consciously hides behind the horizon appears at the most critical moment. And think about this, throughout the entire main saga, Howland hasn't gone anywhere. He is sitting in Greywater Watch, waiting. The War of the Five Kings rages, the Red Wedding happens, the Boltons seize the North, and he remains silent. Because his place is not in this war. His war is different, and when his moment comes, he will emerge from the swamps just as he always has, unexpectedly and decisively. To sum up, at the beginning of this analysis, I said that House Reed guards a secret upon which everything depends. Now you can see how literal that is. Not one secret, several. The story of the Night of the Laughing Tree, which Ned didn't dare tell his children. The night on the Isle of Faces, which Howland never shared with anyone, perhaps except his own children. The Tower of Joy and Lyanna's child. The Crannogmen didn't just help the Starks, they preserved the very possibility that the history of the North would, in the end, be about something more than just another war for the throne. Think about it from this perspective. When Ned died on the block in King's Landing, the possibility of the truth about Jon being spoken from his lips died with him. Everything Ned carried within him went with him, except for one thing. In Greywater Watch, in a castle that cannot be found, sat a man who knew. That, if you think about it, is the most important fact about House Reed.
They survive catastrophes because they aren't where the catastrophes are happening. They survive because they know how to wait, and the truth they guard survives along with them. While the great houses slaughter one another, the Crannogmen stand guard over the secrets that determine whether this war has any meaning at all. While the North forgets its gods and turns them into mere set dressing, the Crannogmen remember that something living hides behind those wooden faces. While knights build their reputations on the battlefield, Howland Reed sits in a castle that cannot be found, guarding something more important than any reputation.
A small swamp house with no motto, no claim to the throne, no knights, and no gold. A castle that cannot be found, children with green eyes, and a secret capable of turning Westeros upside down. That is why House Reed is one of the most underrated and most important houses in the entire saga. Because in a world where everyone is shouting, the most important information is kept by those who remain silent. Let me know in the comments, do you think Howland Reed will appear in the final books? And when he finally speaks, what exactly will he say? Subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. There is one moment in the books that almost everyone misses. A conversation in a dark passage beneath the Red Keep. Two men whose voices Arya hears from below through a shaft. She doesn't know who they are. Her father, after hearing her story, decided they were just wandering mummers who had arrived for the tourney. Ned Stark was a clever man, but in that moment he was wrong, because one of the two voices belonged to Varys, and the second belonged to Illyrio Mopatis, and what they were discussing had nothing to do with the interests of the Seven Kingdoms. Varys, the spider, master of whisperers, a bald eunuch in silk, a man who knew everything about everyone. Throughout the entire series, he explained his motives time and again, answered questions about his loyalties, and delivered monologues about the good of the realm. And every time, his words sounded convincing. The problem is, if you put all his explanations together, they don't add up. He served the realm. He served a boy. He served a principal. He chose Daenerys because she was the best ruler. He betrayed Daenerys because she was becoming a tyrant. Each explanation contradicts the last. A spy who spent 20 years telling only the truth suddenly turns out to be a man whose every word cannot be trusted. But here is what I realized when I started comparing the book canon with what happens in the show. Varys wasn't lying. He just never stated his true goal. And he did have a goal, a specific one, a personal one, and it had nothing to do with the good of the people, the greatness of the Targaryens, or the stability of Westeros. Today, we'll break down exactly what the spider was hiding behind every one of his phrases, and why the book Varys and the show Varys are two completely different characters. Let's start with the surface, with what everyone who has watched the show or read at least the first few books knows. Varys appears in A Game of Thrones as the master of whisperers at court, bald, plump, always in silk, always with a faint smile. He knows everything that happens in the kingdom because he maintains a network of informants, his little birds, as he calls them, children he has trained to gather intelligence. He sits on the small council next to Littlefinger, and the two are similar in one respect. Both live by information, but they use it differently. Littlefinger gathers information to sell it and manipulate others. For him, knowledge is a tool for personal advancement. Varys, judging by his own words, acts differently. He states directly several times that he serves neither king nor queen, but the realm. The people, those who suffer under tyrants and flourish under just rulers. In a conversation with Ned Stark, he utters the famous line, "The Red Keep is populated by two types of people, those who are loyal to the realm and those who are loyal only to themselves." It's beautiful,
It's convincing. It is exactly what a man like Ned Stark wants to hear. A noble idea about service above personal gain. And that is precisely why Ned, despite his distrust of the spy, still listened to him. Varys knew how to speak the language of whoever he was listening to.
But here is a detail that is easy to miss. Varys delivered this monologue about serving the people to every new ruler, to the Mad King, to Robert Baratheon, to Joffrey, to Tywin when he was the de facto ruler, and every time the words were similar, only the recipient changed. Varys told everyone what that ruler wanted to believe was the truth about him. This isn't philosophy, this is a survival technique. Remember this thought. We will return to it in a few chapters, because this is where the real analysis begins. To understand Varys, you must return audio output only from who he was before he became the Spider. He was born a slave in Lies, a free city known for its brothels, slave trade, and the beauty of its inhabitants. His mother was a slave. That is effectively all we know of his origins. From slavery, he ended up in a troupe of wandering mummers that traveled the free cities, sometimes sailing to Old Town and King's Landing. A boy learning the acting trade, knowing how to change his voice, change his gait, transform himself. A mummer who didn't perform on stage for money, but lived among people, constantly pretending. Then, in a Meyer port, he was bought by a certain man. The troupe sold him. The money was too good to refuse. Varys knew what people who buy little boys usually want from them, but what they did to him turned out to be different. They gave him a potion that took away his ability to move, but not his consciousness or sensitivity, after which they performed a surgical ritual, and they burned what they cut off from him in a brazier, right before his eyes. Varys tells this story in the book during a conversation with Tyrion, not about the pain, not about the knife, not about what was happening to his body. He says that he still sees it in his nightmares. The voice that answered from the blue flame of the brazier when the sorcerer finished his ritual. Words that Varys didn't understand, a language he didn't know, but the voice answered. It wasn't a trick, it was real. That is where his hatred of magic comes from. Not from the abstract skepticism of an enlightened man, from personal horror, from the memory that magic exists, that it is real, that someone used a piece of his body as a sacrifice for something real, and he doesn't know what exactly. He doesn't know who or what answered from the fire. That question remained with him forever. After the ritual, they threw him out onto the street to die. He survived out of spite, literally out of a desire to prove to that man that he wouldn't die. He survived by begging, by stealing, by doing things one doesn't want to think about. He became the best thief in Myr, was pushed out by a rival, fled to Pentos. And in Pentos, something happened that changed everything. He met a young, poor bravo named Illyrio Mopatis. Illyrio, this man is the second key to the entire story, and he is effectively absent from the show. He appears in the first season, speaks a few lines, arranges the wedding of Daenerys and Drogo, and disappears. A fat merchant with a shaggy beard whom almost no one took seriously. To those who have only read the books through the prism of the show, he seems like a secondary character. That is a big mistake. Illyrio and Varys met in Pentos when both were nobodies. Illyrio was a poor bravo then, living by his blade. Varys, having just arrived from Myr, slept in gutters and was afraid to show himself during the day because he was regularly beaten for being a eunuch. They formed a partnership. Varys would steal things, and Illyrio would return them to their owners for a reward. The scheme was simple and effective. They became rich. Then Varys realized that real money isn't in things, but in information, that knowing other people's secrets is more valuable than any gold.
They exchanged, as they say, their primary assets. Illyrio gained connections, status, a first wife from a good family, and became a magister. Varus gained money and patronage to deploy a network of informants. Then, rumors of his talent spread far and wide. The Mad King, Ares II, who trusted no one in his circle, didn't trust his son, didn't trust his hand, didn't trust his wife, heard of a man who knew everything, and he invited him to court. We need to pause here, because next, a thing happens that the show completely ignored. Varus becomes the master of whisperers at the Mad King's court. The logic seems clear. A paranoid monarch needed an experienced spy. But there is one detail, one piece of evidence cited by one of the best analytical pieces on the book canon. Varus, by all appearances, was actively supplying Ares II with false information. Specifically, he gave him false intelligence that Prince Rhaegar was plotting against his father, that he was meeting with lords behind the king's back, that he wanted to call a great council and depose Ares. Stop. Varus is a master of information. He knew everything. He was never poorly informed. If he was supplying Ares with false information about Rhaegar, it wasn't a mistake. It was an intention to deepen the Mad King's paranoia, to make him even more uncontrollable, to widen the rift between father and son. Why? If Varus served the realm, why did he need an even madder king?
The answer to this question changes the entire understanding of his motives. But before we get to it, we first need to sort out Illyrio and why this man's wife means much more than it seems.
Illyrio married twice. His first wife was from a good Pentoshi family, a cousin to the Prince of Pentos. This was a social calculation, a marriage that opened doors to the city's elite. Then she died, and Illyrio took a second wife. Her name was Sarah. He found her in a Lycene brothel, bought her, brought her home, fell in love, and married her. Despite the fact that this marriage closed every door in Pentoshi society to him. A marriage to a former prostitute meant contempt and ostracism from those he had been courting for so many years. But he married her anyway, because, in his own words from the book, this woman was a different person to him, not just a bedwarmer. Sarah's appearance is described with a rarity for Martin, specific detail. Large blue eyes, golden hair with silver streaks in golden hair. This is not just a description of beauty. This is a description of Valyrian features. Silver gold hair with a hint of ash are traits of Targaryen blood. And one more fact. The book wiki records a direct quote. The male line of House Blackfyre ended with the death of Malus the Monstrous on the Stepstones. Exactly, the male line, but the Blackfyres are a branch of the Targaryens, bastards of Aegon IV, whom he legitimized before his death. They rebelled 5 times. Each rebellion was crushed with iron. The male line ended, but the female line is nowhere explicitly mentioned as having died out. A Lycene prostitute with Valyrian features. Illyrio, who married her against all odds. Illyrio, who wept for her after her death and kept her portrait in a locket. This is not just the sentimentality of a merchant. This suggests who she might have been. And now, the key detail. Illyrio raised a boy, the very same boy whom Tyrion meets in the book under the name Young Griff, the boy to whom Varus attributes descent from Rhaegar and Elia Martell, the boy they call Aegon VI. It is this boy that Varus and Illyrio intended to place on the Iron Throne. It is for him they killed, lied, and wove conspiracies for 20 years. A statue standing in the courtyard of Illyrio's estate depicts Illyrio himself as a young man, but Tyrion, upon seeing it, thinks of one thing. Young Griff looks like this statue, the same shape of the eyes, the same line of the cheekbones. This is a theory. There is no direct proof in the text.
but the evidence points in one direction. Aegon VI, whom Varys calls the son of Rhaegar, is most likely the son of Illyrio and Sarah, a grandson or great-grandson of the Blackfyres through the female line, not a Targaryen, a Blackfyre, an impostor with Valyrian blood, whom they spent 20 years raising to be the perfect king.
And if that's the case, then everything Varys has done takes on an entirely different meaning. Let's re-examine his actions, not as viewers who only know what the show revealed, but as readers looking at the book version. First, Varys feeds the Mad King lies about Rhaegar. Rhaegar dies at the Battle of the Trident. Had Rhaegar survived instead of Robert, Westeros would be ruled by an intelligent, charismatic, and beloved Targaryen king. There would have been no place for an impostor of dubious lineage by his side. Rhaegar's death removed the primary obstacle, a convenient coincidence or a long-term calculation. Second, Varys continues to serve at Robert's court. This seems strange for a Targaryen loyalist. If he loves the Targaryens and serves them, why did he serve Robert faithfully for 20 years? But if his goal isn't the Targaryens per se, but a specific boy in Essos, then everything is explained. Under Robert, Westeros grows weak. The War of the Five Kings will destabilize it. Debts to the Iron Bank will mount. The lords will fall out. And at that moment, a young prince with good manners, an education, the Golden Company at his back, and authentic Valyrian features will arrive as a savior. Third, he doesn't send Tyrion to Daenerys, not at first. In the books, Tyrion first reaches Illyrio, then joins young Griff's party. In the book, Varys remained in the Red Keep and, at the end of A Dance with Dragons, killed Grand Maester Pycelle and Kevin Lannister. One, to destabilize the small council. The other, because Kevin was the only one who could have brought order to the Lannister chaos, stabilized the realm, halted the collapse. Varys killed a good man who served his house honestly, simply because that man was preventing the country from sliding into controlled chaos. Pay attention to how he acts in that scene. He uses children, little birds with knives, the very children he trained to gather intelligence. It is they who finish off Kevin while Varys watches. He watches, he doesn't look away. Not because he's a monster, but because to him, they are tools. A long-settled, calm matter. Children, knives, a dying old man, a respected lord. All these are parts of a single mechanism. Varys takes no pleasure in it, but he feels no hesitation either. To the dying Kevin, Varys says something that deserves to be examined separately. He says that Aegon was raised to rule, that he can read and write, speak several languages, and has studied history and law, that he lived with fishermen and worked with his hands, and knows what hunger and fear are, that he will be the just king that no Targaryen has been for a century. This sounds like a sincere conviction. Perhaps it is, but note, Varys describes neither blood nor right. He describes upbringing and qualities. This is precisely what is needed to legitimize a man whose claim to the throne is ambiguous. Not an heir, but the best candidate. This is not the rhetoric of a monarchist. This is the rhetoric of someone who knows there are issues with the succession. Now, let's compare the book and the show, because this isn't just a discrepancy in details. These are two fundamentally different characters with different motives. In the show, Varys leaves the Red Keep with Tyrion. The two of them sail to Essos, to Meereen, to Daenerys. Varys becomes her advisor. He serves her loyally until he sees her descending into madness. After the Battle of King's Landing, when she burns the city, Varys begins a correspondence, informing the lords of Jon's parentage. Daenerys finds out and executes him with fire. The logic of this Varys is clear. He is a utilitarian. He always chooses the best ruler for the people. First it's Daenerys, then it isn't. Consistent, though a bit bland for such a character. In the books, none of this happens. Varys never left Westeros. He never met Daenerys in person. He was not her advisor. Tyrion reached Daenerys by a different path, through Illyrio, through young Griff, through a chain of accidents and his abduction by Jorah Mormont. Varys remained in King's Landing the entire time, acting from the shadows, creating chaos, killing key figures, and preparing the ground for the invasion. And this is the fundamental difference. In the show, Varys bet on Daenerys. In the book, he never considered her the primary claimant. In his plan, Daenerys was a variable, perhaps useful, perhaps dangerous, but not the goal. His goal was Aegon, who does not exist in the show. The show cut young Griff almost entirely. A forced measure. The story was already complex, and there were too many characters. But by cutting Aegon, the show's creators automatically turned Varys from the architect of his own conspiracy into an assistant to someone else's. He lost his own agenda. He became a pretty ornament at Daenerys' court. Intelligent, but reactive. Not a builder, but an advisor. It is a different character. Conleth Hill, who played him, felt this, and he spoke about it openly. For whose invasion? By his own account, for Aegon's. But Daenerys is also sailing to Westeros with dragons. And here is the most pressing question. If Varys serves the Targaryens as such, why does he need Aegon when there is Daenerys with 3 living dragons? Daenerys is stronger. Daenerys is more real. Daenerys has already conquered several cities. Why not her?
One possible answer is this. Varys and Illyrio originally wanted them both to return together. Daenerys with an army and dragons, Aegon with the Golden Company, a marriage, dual legitimacy. But Tyrion convinced Aegon not to wait for Daenerys and to sail immediately, and the plan began to crumble. Another option, and it is far more interesting, Varys never wanted Daenerys to be queen, because Daenerys is a true Targaryen, with real rights, with real blood. Next to her, an imposter looks exactly like an imposter. That is precisely why the plan was always about Aegon first. Daenerys and Viserys, with their Dothraki and Unsullied, were a military tool, a resource that was supposed to provide Aegon with an army and then step aside, preferably forever. It is cruel, it is cynical, it is nothing like his monologue about serving the people. Let's break down the third key point, Varys and magic. He says he hates magic, and that seems to be the truth. He truly opposed Stannis precisely because he relied on Melisandre. He openly expressed hostility toward any manifestation of the supernatural. It would seem that a man with such a history has every reason to hate what was done to him. But here is the paradox, the voice from the flames, the castration ritual in which his body parts were used as a sacrifice for a magical spell. To whom was this offering made? What power answered from the fire? Varys does not know. He tells Tyrion directly, a god, a demon, a conjurer's trick? He cannot say. He knows all the tricks, but that was no trick. There is another point in the book that often goes unnoticed. When Tyrion is sitting in the barrel in which he is being smuggled across the narrow sea and thinks about Varys, he recalls a peculiarity. Varys helped him escape. He didn't just organize the escape, he personally led him through the secret passages of the Red Keep. A man who hadn't stepped out of the shadows for 20 years personally escorted Tyrion, whom the entire city had just been hunting. Why? Varys' official version, Jaime asked him to. He helped Jaime Lannister as a friendly gesture. Tyrion doesn't believe this explanation, and rightly so, because a Varys who does something out of friendly feelings is a different Varys, not the one we've seen all this time. The real reason, most likely, lies elsewhere. Tyrion is needed by Illyrio and Varys, an intelligent, experienced, ruthless tactician, a man who knows Westeros from the inside, a man whom Aegon can use as an advisor once he gains power. Or, more importantly, a man who can be directed to Daenerys as a sort of pretext, a bridge, a way to control the Dragon Queen. Varys doesn't help people, he invests in people. And in this logic, Tyrion is an investment, not an object of compassion, a resource.
We have reached what I consider the strongest piece of evidence, not a theory, but the text of the book itself. Arya's conversation in the dungeon, the very one her father mistook for chatter about mummers. The girl hears two men. She doesn't understand who they are, but she hears one talking about a delay, about how the Lannisters and Starks must not go to war. It is not yet time. Viserys needs to gather an army. They need a few more weeks. Literally, in plain speech, we don't want this war to start right now. We need time. We know that one of these voices belonged to Illyrio. The second, most likely, was Varys in one of his famous disguises. And they are discussing schedules, not the good of the people, not justice, a timetable. Their plan required a specific sequence of events. Viserys with an army, Daenerys with Drogo, perhaps Aegon, who still needed to be brought to the right place. A war between the Lannisters and Starks was useful, but only at the right moment. A war too early could close off opportunities. An alliance too early could allow one of the local claimants to win popular sympathy. Varys wasn't stopping the war out of pacifism, he was managing its schedule. This is not serving the people. This is the largest regime change operation ever planned by two men without armies. 20 years of preparation, 20 years of small steps, killings at the right moment, blocking information flows, raising a child, building alliances. Now let's talk about something the show doesn't mention at all, the Golden Company. The Golden Company is a mercenary force, about 10,000 men, one of the largest mercenary armies in Essos. But it has a feature that fundamentally distinguishes it from any other mercenary army. The Golden Company has never broken a contract, not once in its entire existence. That is their only but absolute pride. Who created the Golden Company? The descendants of those who fought for Daemon Blackfyre in the first Blackfyre Rebellion. After their defeat, they left Westeros and created a military organization in Essos that lives in expectation of the day they will return, when the Blackfyres will reclaim the Iron Throne. 5 rebellions, 5 defeats. The male line of the Blackfyres died out, but the Golden Company did not die. It waited. Who signed the contract with them to support Aegon? Illyrio Mopatis. Thousands of people wouldn't risk their lives for an abstract, good king for the people. They would fight for what had been the meaning of several generations to them, for the return of the blood to which they were sworn. But officially, Aegon is a Targaryen, Rhaegar's son, not a Blackfyre. If Aegon is actually the son of Illyrio and Sarah, it explains everything. The Golden Company knew whose blood they were supporting. Not publicly, perhaps, maybe not even directly, but their captains were no fools. They wouldn't have followed a random boy whom 2 merchants were passing off as a dead prince. They followed because they were told or given enough to understand. This is precisely the theory that explains the apparent nonsense. Why Varys prefers Aegon to Daenerys. Why Illyrio keeps a locket with a portrait of his dead wife. Why the Golden Company in the books breaks its tradition and supports a Targaryen claimant, when the entire history of that organization is a history of fighting against the Targaryens. Let's return to the question we started with. Who did Varys serve? Not the realm. That's a pretty wrapping for other people's ears. Ned Stark heard it and was reassured. That is exactly why Varys phrased it that way. Not the people. The people he supposedly serves were never part of his calculations. He killed Kevin Lannister, a good man who could genuinely have stabilized the situation and reduced the suffering of the common folk, because it interfered with his plan. Not the Targaryens as such. Because Daenerys, a true Targaryen, was more of a tool than a goal in his plans. Several versions remain, and none are fully confirmed because Martin hasn't finished the books yet. The first version, he served the Blackfyres. Either he was a Blackfyre himself, or he became their loyalist at some point in his life. Perhaps back in Pentos, when he learned of Sarah's blood. Perhaps earlier. Then everything he did was to restore a dynasty that had been destroyed by the Targaryens. The second version. He served Illyrio, personally, out of devotion to the only friend who accepted him when he was a nobody. He was helping to realize Illyrio's dream of putting his son on the throne. This is a very human explanation for a character who is usually considered a creature of pure calculation. The third version, the darkest, he served what he heard from the brazier's fire that night in Mire. A voice answered. Varys doesn't know who it was, but perhaps someone answered him later. Perhaps his actions have a direction we cannot see due to the lack of finished books. All three versions, strictly speaking, are theories. There is no direct proof for any of them, but there is enough circumstantial evidence in the text for the first and second to take them seriously. Now let's talk about how the series handled this character and why the actor who played Varys was unhappy with what they did to him. Conleth Hill, who played the Spider, said in an interview that his character's final arc disappointed him. That from a complex, multi-dimensional manipulator, Varys turned into something flatter. He wasn't allowed to play what should have been. And he's right. The show's Varys is a well-written utilitarian, intelligent, cautious, sincerely believing in what he says. His death is logical within the framework of his own philosophy. He chose rulers based on the benefit to the people, and when Daenerys ceased to be beneficial to the people, he began to act against her. It's an honest choice for an honest character. The book Varys is a different creature. He didn't leave King's Landing for 20 years. He remained in the shadows, in the passages, in the dungeons, killing the necessary people, maintaining chaos, directing events. He is not a kind man with the right principles. He is a cold architect who has one goal that he has never told anyone. The most telling scene that the show cut is precisely the final scene of A Dance with Dragons. Varys kills Pycelle and Kevan Lannister. He looks at the dying Kevan and says to him, "Forgive me, you were a good man. You were just in the way." Then the little birds, children with knives, finish off Kevan while Varys watches. This is not a man serving the people. This is a man who long ago decided that the end justifies any means. Any. There is one more question I would like to raise, a symbolic one. The name. Varys. In English, it sounds like various, a Latin word meaning diverse, changeable, inconsistent. A man who changes his appearance, voice, position. A master of disguise. This might be a coincidence. Martin doesn't have many such coincidences. Something else is more interesting. His persistent nickname, the Spider. In most cultures, a spider is associated with a web, with a trap, with a creature that does not chase its prey. It builds a web and waits, patiently, sometimes for years, until something falls into it by itself. That is exactly how Varys worked. He didn't strike direct blows. He created conditions in which the necessary people made the steps he needed them to make themselves. He didn't let Tyrion go out of compassion because Tyrion had to fly in the right direction. He didn't kill Kevan out of cruelty because Kevan was closing a necessary crack. He didn't serve the Mad King out of loyalty because the Mad King was part of the web. The spider does not eat. The spider feeds. The last question worth asking before the finale, if Varys was so smart, if the plan had been building for 20 years, why didn't it work sooner?
Why did Viserys die in the Dothraki Sea? Why didn't Daenerys return to Pentos when Illyrio sent ships for her? Why did Tyrion convince Aegon to sail without her? Because the plan had one fundamental flaw. Varys knew how to control information. He knew how to create conditions, but he didn't know how to control people. And people are not information. They make decisions that don't fit the schedule. Viserys turned out to be stupider than expected. Daenerys turned out to be more independent than planned. Tyrion turned out to be smarter than was safe. This is the central paradox of Varys. He built the most perfect information network in Westeros. He knew everything about everyone. But knowledge is not power. Knowledge is only an opportunity. And an opportunity is only realized when people behave predictably. And they never behave predictably. Never.
The last question worth asking: if Varys' plan was to put Aegon on the throne, what went wrong? In the books, it is still happening. The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring are not written. We don't know how young Griff's story will end. We don't know if what Varys told about him is true. We don't know if Aegon and Daenerys will meet, and what will happen when she arrives in Westeros with 3 dragons, where a man claiming her family's throne is already sitting. But we do know one thing for sure. Tyrion sowed doubt in Aegon, convinced him to sail without Daenerys, not to wait. That disrupted the original plan. Varys wanted them to unite. Tyrion, intentionally or not, led them down different paths. The very same Tyrion whom Varys had so painstakingly delivered to Illyrio. The investment proved unmanageable. Sometimes the smartest plans are ruined by one clever person who thinks faster than the schedule. Quait's prophecy, given to Daenerys, warned of 3 things. Beware the Mummer's dragon. The book community has argued for years about who the Mummer's dragon is. A portion of readers believe it is Aegon. A mummer is a performer. Varys was a boy among mummers. His Aegon is a mummer's dragon, a dragon that isn't real. This is also a theory, but it fits very well into what we have been analyzing. And now, with everything laid out, I want to give my assessment. Varys is the best spy in the history of Westeros, not because he knew other people's secrets, but because he knew how to hide his own. For 20 years, he told people what they wanted to hear. To Ned Stark, he spoke of duty and honor. To Tyrion, he spoke of sharp minds and justice. To Daenerys, through intermediaries, he spoke of a great queen. Everyone heard what they wanted. No one heard the truth. The most striking thing about this character is that his main tool is not knowing other people's secrets. His main tool is telling people exactly the truth about themselves that they already want to believe is the truth. Ned wants to believe that there is at least one person in the Red Keep who serves something greater than personal gain. And Varys gives him exactly that. Not a lie, a plausible version of himself that brings comfort. He doesn't pretend to be kind, he pretends to be understandable, and that works much better. The show made him an understandable character, a man with principles that can be articulated. This made him more interesting to a viewer who wants clarity. But it betrayed the essence. The book Varys is a creature who, in 20 years, hasn't let slip a single real word about his goal. He conducted one of the longest secret operations in the literary history of political intrigue. And he did it alone, or almost alone, with one ally in Essos and a network of little birds who didn't know who they were working for themselves. He is not a spider in the sense of a monster. He is a spider in the sense of a master. The spider is not visible, only the web is visible. And only when something is caught do you realize it was there the whole time. That is why the only truth Varys has spoken the entire time is not the monologue about the people. It is the phrase spoken at the very beginning, in the very first book.
when he was explaining to Ned the difference between the people in the Red Keep, those who are loyal to the realm and those who are loyal only to themselves.
He included himself in the first category, but he should have included himself in the second, or in a third, which isn't in this classification, in the category of those who are loyal to something so personal and so hidden that no listener would even think to ask the question. Write in the comments what you think. Is the book Varys loyal to the Blackfyres, a friend, or something else? And subscribe if you don't want to miss the next breakdown, because Martin still has many such characters who say one thing but do something completely different.